Have you ever wondered why that new gym membership starts gathering dust around February? Or why that grand plan to wake up an hour earlier just fizzles out? Yeah, we've all been there. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise and build a clear, science-backed framework to make good habits actually stick. For good.
All right, here's the game plan. First, we're going to bust a huge myth and find out the real number for habit building. Then, we'll peek under the hood at what's happening in your brain. After that, we'll dive into a powerful new way of thinking about progress, get a super practical 4-step toolkit, and finally, we'll tie it all together with the most powerful motivator of all, your identity. So why is it so darn hard? Well, it usually comes down to a big misunderstanding of how habits are even formed in the first place. We tend to think it's all about willpower, but here's the secret. The problem isn't you, it's the system you're using. And that system is often built on a complete myth.
You've probably heard this one, right? The "it takes 21 days" rule. It actually came from a plastic surgeon back in the 60s who noticed it took his patients about that long to get used to their new nose. But that's just an initial adjustment. Real science, specifically a landmark 2009 study, found that for a habit to become truly automatic, well, we need to be looking at a very different number.
And that brings us right to our first major insight, the 66-day habit average. Let's dig into what the real data says. So, this study, led by a psychologist named Philippa Lally, was fascinating. They tracked 96 people who all picked a new, simple habit, like drinking a bottle of water with lunch. The researchers then pinpointed the exact moment when doing the thing became second nature, when they did it without even thinking. And what they found was that on average, it took 66 days. 66! So think about this for a second. If you've ever felt like a failure because you weren't consistent after 3 weeks, you weren't failing. You were probably just getting started. But, and this is absolutely critical, 66 is just the average. Look at this range. The study found it could take as little as 18 days for some people, or for more complex habits, up to a whopping 254 days. This just proves that the timeline totally depends on you and the habit. It's a marathon, for sure, not a sprint. So what is actually happening inside our brains during those 66-ish days? Let's take a look at how these new behaviors literally get wired into our biology. Your brain basically goes through 3 phases. At first, your prefrontal cortex, that's the planning, decision-making part of your brain, is doing all the heavy lifting. It takes a ton of willpower. But as you keep repeating the action, it starts to transition. And finally, the basal ganglia, a more primitive, automatic part of your brain, just takes over. The habit is now a reflex, no thought required. I love this analogy. Think of it like you're clearing a new path through a dense forest. The first few times, you're hacking away at branches, it's slow, it's hard work. But after a couple months of walking that same path every day, you've paved a superhighway. You've literally rewired your brain. Okay, knowing the science is one thing, but actually applying it is another. And this brings us to a brilliant strategic philosophy made famous by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. This quote, it's a total game changer. Think about it. Winners and losers in any field often have the exact same goals. The difference isn't the goal itself. It's the system, the daily process they follow to get there. Let's break this down. A goal is something like run a marathon. This means you're basically deferring your happiness until you cross that finish line. A system, on the other hand, is put on my running shoes and run 3 times a week. A systems mindset lets you find satisfaction in the process itself. It's all about falling in love with the journey, not just the destination. So, how do we build these amazing systems? Well, we start by understanding the basic mechanics of any habit, and that is something called the habit loop. Every single habit you have, whether it's good or bad, follows this same 4-step pattern. First, there's a cue, or a trigger. That cue sparks a craving. The craving motivates a response, which is the habit itself. And that response delivers a reward. The reward satisfies the craving and, most importantly, teaches your brain to repeat the loop next time. And here is the coolest part. If we can understand this loop, we can totally engineer it to our advantage. And that gives us our actionable toolkit, the 4 laws of behavior change. Here they are, the whole shebang. To build a good habit, you just have to make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. And to break a bad habit, you just invert those laws. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Simple, right? Let's run through them real quick. First, make it obvious. Don't rely on your memory. Design your environment so the cues are right in your face. Or, even better, use habit stacking. You just link your new habit to one you already do, like, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Second, make it attractive. Our brains are wired to want things, so use temptation bundling. Pair something you need to do with something you really want to do. Or join a group where your desired habit is just the normal thing to do. Social pressure is incredibly powerful.
Third, make it easy. You want to make showing up the path of least resistance. The 2-minute rule is your best friend here. Scale any new habit down so it takes less than 2 minutes to start. So, read before bed becomes read 1 page. The point is just to start. You have to master the art of showing up.
And finally, make it satisfying. Our brains love immediate rewards. A habit tracker is perfect for this. You get that little hit of satisfaction from checking a box. And remember the golden rule, never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new bad habit.
Okay, these 4 laws are incredibly powerful, but there is one final layer, one more concept that makes all of this truly last. The ultimate motivation isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become.
See, you can try to change things from the outside in. You can focus on outcomes, like losing 20 pounds. Or you can focus on your process, like a new diet. But the deepest, most permanent change starts from the inside out. It starts with changing your identity, what you actually believe about yourself. You stop saying, I want to be a runner, and you start believing, I am a runner.
And this brings us to maybe the most crucial point of all. Your habits are not just these isolated actions. Each time you put on your running shoes, you are literally casting a vote for your identity as a runner. These small habits provide the evidence for your new identity. And that's it. True behavior change is identity change.
So, as we wrap up, the question to ask yourself isn't just, what habit do I want to build? It's this. With all the small choices you're making today, with every action you take, who are you casting your votes to become?